Let us pray. God, we ask that you help us to open our hearts. You were invited in the second reading to open wide our hearts, and so we ask that you help us do that. Sometimes it's hard, especially when there's so much suffering around us, so much that pulls on our attention, so much disagreement in our world today. So help us to open up our hearts, help us not to fear, help us to know you are with us, help us to have faith. And may I be an instrument in communicating today, in sharing, and in bringing a seed that can be planted in this community. And in gratitude for this opportunity, we pray through Christ our Lord. Amen. Good morning. Good morning. And thank you for this opportunity. I feel so welcome in this Franciscan community, and I come to you from another Franciscan community in East Oakland, my parish, St. Elizabeth. St. Elizabeth of Hungary was a secular Franciscan, one of the many lay followers. As you know, when Francis was called to go rebuild my church, and he didn't know what that meant. And we like to joke about how, what did Francis do? He started literally rebuilding this rundown church of San Damiano. But many people came to follow him, including Clare, and she followed Francis and did it in her own way. And so we are inspired at Canticle Farm by Francis and Clare, and we take our initiating mission from the inspiration of the Canticle of Creation. So I want to just begin by sharing a few lines from that beautiful song of interconnected and interdependence. Francis wrote this, so remember, I grew up knowing this prayer, but not knowing the time in which Francis wrote it, and that changed everything for me. So think about it. Francis is at the end of his life. He's almost lost his eyesight, and he's got these wounds, these mysterious wounds, the stigmata. And if you've ever been to Assisi, how many of you have been to Assisi? So you've been and you've seen, Clare actually made shoes for Francis because he would have been walking barefoot. And you can see the blood stains on these shoes. And I was actually born on the Feast of the Stigmata, September 17th, so I had sort of a romantic notion about what the stigmata was. But to be there in Assisi and to see that, wow, this was someone who was in pain, bleeding, this was a painful thing. So he's got these wounds, he's in pain, he can barely see, and pretty much the community that's grown up to follow him and was inspired by him, he's on the margins of that now. They're going their own way and leaving Francis behind. This is the moment in which he writes this song, in which he says, "Most high, all-powerful, sweet Lord, yours is the praise, the glory, and the honor, and every blessing. Be praised, my Lord, for all of your creatures, and first for Brother Sun, who makes the day bright and luminous. And he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor. He is the image of you, Most High." And of course he goes on to name the earth our mother, and the moon and the stars our sister, and the fire and the wind our brother, and even Sister Death, our sister, who, if we died the first death, the second can do us no harm. So we're inspired, we say, gosh, in the time of Francis's life, when things were falling apart, his own life unraveling, he chose to put his attention on gratitude and to sing a song of interdependence and praise. And so in our own moment, in this time where so many systems are unraveling, and we know this because we live in a world where we are aware through our technology now of the suffering, of what's happening all across our world. And in some profound way, we've gotten separated and we've forgotten that we're not separate from all of that. And it can be really overwhelming, but we know we're not separate, not from what we call nature out there, not from our fellow brothers and sisters of the human variety and of the other than human variety. And so we also at Canticle Farm are choosing to put our attention on gratitude and to sing a song of praise in a time when things are unraveling around us. What else are we to do but to choose gratitude, to choose thanksgiving, to choose to know that we're not separate? And so we take our inspiration from this canticle. I also want to tell another story that's deeply inspiring to us, which comes from the end of Francis's life. And he had asked to be laid naked on the earth, and very connected to the earth, knowing he wasn't separate. And of all of the things he could have said to his band of brothers who were there with him as he lay dying, he could have exhorted them to remember Lady Poverty, because of course he renounced his own family's wealth, renounced his father, and walked away from them to be with those on the margins. Or he could have reminded them to be peacemakers, as the person who had made the journey to the Holy Land and to make peace with the Sultan. Or he could have said, remember, you're not separate from all of this earth. But what he did say, and what inspires us at Canticle Farm, is, I have done that which was mine to do. I have done that which was mine to do. May Christ teach you yours. May Christ teach you yours. So I find that very relief-giving in a world where we know of the suffering, and our hearts that are open. We're invited today in the second reading to open our hearts to be able to embrace it all. Hearts that are open are literally always suffering with. That's what hearts do. That's the literal meaning of compassion. And so when we know of the suffering in our world, when we as parents know of parents being ripped from their children on our border, how can we not feel the pain of that? When we know of refugees in their own tossed and torn and wind-blown stormy seas, being drowned and thrown into the waters, surely praying for God to intercede. When we know of all the pain and suffering in the world, our hearts want to respond. And so we're trying to figure out, each of us, because we didn't come with operating instructions about what is it that you're going to do with the one, as Mary Oliver says, wild and precious life. So we're always in this process, right? Especially as followers of Jesus. What does it mean to be a person of faith? How do we then pick up our cross and follow? How do we follow him? What does that look like in our life? And so we see ourselves as a community of discernment where we can be wrestling with that question. We have, our houses are named after the different stanzas of the canticle, and we actually have a space on our land that we call Sister Death, because we know we have to die a lot of deaths in order for that second one to do us no harm. And part of that dying is to figure out, how can we be in service to life? What is mine to do? And it's unique and it's very particular, which is very Franciscan. And if I don't do it, it's not going to happen. It won't happen, and there will be a loss to the collective humanity and the whole world, really, because each of us came, we believe, with something to do in service to life. So what does that mean? What does it look like? What is a day in the life of Canticle Farm? Well, we have 6 houses, and 4 of them are on one street, 36th Avenue in Fruitvale, Oakland. There's 2 on the street and then 2 behind them. This street happens to have very deep lots. So already we have a very big garden, but then in the last 6 years we've been able to buy and then rent the 2 houses on the other street. So a lot of what we're about is taking down fences. And there's a way I literally feel like the land is in shock when the fence comes down, because it's like, wow, we're reunited again, and we're trying to listen to the land. What does the land want? What wants to grow here? What seeds do we want to plant? How can we, in a neighborhood where people often are seeking their security by putting up fences and having dogs, and that helps people feel safe. And yet, we have a lot of school groups who come, a lot of from young children up through college age, and I like to take them out and stand on the street and show the fences, and we talk about, does that provide security? Sure, but what else happens? So often in these neighborhoods, we don't even know each other anymore. We don't know our neighbors. So we're behind these fences, and really what I like to say is our true security is in our relationships, not our ours and our barking dogs. So what does it look like to start taking down fences? And this line that I love is attributed to Francis. He didn't say it, but it really sort of encapsulates Franciscan spirituality. Preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. And so we're trying to be people who preach the gospel by the way we live our lives. So we've taken down our fences. We have a big, huge garden. We're growing food. we're trying to get to the point where we can grow enough so that we can really be eating from our garden and sharing it with our neighbors. We encourage people to grow food. That's one of the ways that we're getting reconnected, both to our own bodies and back to Earth. We're 25 people right now in these 6 houses, and we are intergenerational and interrace and intergender and interfaith. So we're working across differences, and I love to remind myself that diversity is a characteristic of any healthy system, whether it's an ecosystem or a community. And I think this is some of the most important work that we're doing right now, because we live in a world where there's a lot of divisions, and we've really forgotten how to respect our differences and to be able to listen to each other across those differences. So we are now a community that's predominantly actually people of color, and one of the things that has emerged as our work is this idea of how do we be in relationship, how do we begin to repair the egregious, I say that, the sin, the real sin, the missing the mark of stolen land and enslaved people, the genocide that is the history of this country that we've all inherited. So we've got this ancestral, historical, systemic injustice that as a country has not been named and acknowledged. So that gives us the opportunity in community and in relationship across these differences to do that work. And it is not easy. Like any relationships, it takes work, it takes opening our hearts. So we have a practice at our liturgy on Sunday where we welcome everything and open our heart to everything and everyone. One of the things that we are doing in our neighborhood is we offer twice a month, we offer classes in Spanish, because there's many people in our communities who are only Spanish speaking, for women and their children to come learn how to grow natural, to do natural medicines, to grow herbs. It uses tinctures. Our community doesn't have a lot of access to healthy food, and so there's lots of health problems because of that. And so helping people to reconnect again to their indigenous traditions and to be able to be more connected to Earth is one of the things we do. One of our houses where 4 of our community members live, 4 of the elders in our community, has emerged to be a place of restorative justice for men who are paroled from life sentences, who are teaching us. One of them was actually convicted of something he didn't do and spent 26 years in prison. And so this man teaches me daily what it means to be a forgiving, a person of forgiveness and a follower of Christ. I'm so profoundly humbled to be able to be in a community with him. And we have a number of young activists as well who we are supporting their work in the world. So because we're based in relationships, I'm always encouraging people to come and meet us and get to know us and be part of our circle, widening circle, because we're living there, but it takes a whole village to be able to support what we're doing. So if you're interested and you'd like to come, there's many ways you could do that, or just even know what we're about. I have a few brochures out on the table in the back. And in closing, I just want to say that what we're doing is, I say we're experimenting at the intersection of faith-based, social justice-based, and earth-based nonviolent activism. And noticing that those 3 things have been separated. And what does it look like if we, as people of faith, are really deeply listening for what is mine to do? How am I here to respond to the call to be a follower of Christ? And if I'm doing that and I'm connected to Earth and Earth's rhythms and Earth's cycles, there'll be times when I'm more fallow and times when I'm more in full bloom, and that's very important as well, because all of what we're trying to do is create systems that are more sustainable than the ones that have gotten us into the mess we're in right now. And so in closing, I just invite us, because this reading today spoke deeply to me as I think about those disciples on those rocky seas who didn't know Jesus very well yet. This is at the beginning of Jesus' ministry. So what wasn't there so much was the relationships, and that reminds me again of what it takes to be able to do this work. Is we need to be in relationship, and to be in relationship, we need to keep opening wide our hearts. And And we certainly need to keep remembering, be not afraid. Be not afraid. We have to come back to faith. And Jesus invites us to that today. So I invite each of us to figure out, to keep wrestling as we go forth from this beautiful liturgy today out into the world. What does it mean for each of us to be a person of faith, someone who perfect love casts out fear? How do we open our heart and be people of the gospel? We pray.